Alongside Ryan Rishaug, Shogger, for the third straight year, the Oilers are toiling with a disappointing record right around 500 through the first 24 games of the season. Right around this point, the last 2 years, the Oilers had major turnarounds, ultimately reaching the Cup final. Now that's playing with fire. Are you seeing any warning signs that this version of the team may not have that kind of bounce back in them, Shogger?
Yeah, I think there are a few things that are concerning about the way that this group has played overall, Gino, and I will place the caveats that it has been a little bit better lately. So they were on a monster road trip and it finished better than it started. So there's been an uptick. But I would say that the way the team has defended this year has definitely been an issue, right? They're near the bottom of the league in a few metrics that matter, defending off the rush and those sorts of things. And I think they've had a lot of blue liners that have really struggled this year. So the quality of their play overall defensively has been really lacking. And I think that gets in the way of a team that maybe mentally is ready to turn the corner, ready to dig in a bit more meaningful way. But if the structure isn't there, there's not a lot to fall back on. So that's one thing I'm definitely keeping an eye on, right? The gamesmanship has gotten better, right? The intention to go out there and compete night in, night out, that's gotten a little bit better lately. That was severely lacking before. But can you defend in a way that'll make any of that other stuff matter? And that's something we're keeping an eye on for the Oilers. That's a little different.
Shogger, you are the eternal optimist. I get that. But an uptick? They got shelled in their stops in Buffalo and Washington on this road trip. And then they had to go to OT to beat Tampa. And yes, they beat Florida. They look good in that. But an uptick, is that a big enough sample size for you to say there's an uptick there?
Well, first of all, Gino, I am not an optimist. I am a realist, right? There's no need for optimism. I don't care whether this team wins or loses. So that's not part of my thought process in any way, shape, or form. The reality is there were significant things missing from this team's game, right? The willingness to go out there and compete hard for one another, to stand up for one another, to up the level of gamesmanship and not get out-competed by other teams. This team was lackluster, it was docile, and there were significant characteristics that were missing. Those showed up on this road trip. They really did, the last 3 games. And I know when you look at the wins and loss column, you can say it looks like same old as per the rest of the year. But watching these games, I'm telling you, these things showed up. That game against the Tampa Bay Lightning, it was a fantastic game. And the Oilers avoided the huge mistakes. They avoided getting in their own way. They competed. It was nasty. It was a tough game, and they were in the fight, Gino. I'm telling you, that is enough to stand out this year based on where their compete level has been at. So, yes, there have been some important improvements in areas that I think are going to help them win more games moving forward. Some signs that they're coming back to life. But again, it won't matter anything if they can't defend or get the goaltending that they need, Gino. I'm baiting you with that.
we're going to get to goaltending. Don't worry about that. I just find it interesting that your uptick starts from a very low baseline. Let's talk about McDavid and Draisaitl. The look on their faces, the frustration, game after game. They've combined for 1 goal each over the last 4. What's your take on their recent play in particular?
Yeah, so I would say that I've seen more frustration out of those guys than either of the last couple of years. It's been a frustrating start to the season for them, no question about it. I definitely think that, they were on the wrong side of it in a few different ways, more often than I've seen them in the past, right? But they've dug in here a little bit in recent games. They really have, and they've been pushing it in the right direction. I think they've dug in as leaders on this team, and they're helping to turn this thing around. The production in recent games, as you point out, maybe hasn't been fantastic, but if you look near the top of the scoring race, Connor McDavid is right in and around that range with Nate McKinnon and such. Leon Draisaitl, I think, has 14 goals here. So they're not entirely off pace, but it hasn't been what we're used to seeing. And I would say it mirrors a lot of what the team has been doing, right? More frustration in general with this group. Results that have been inconsistent. Compete that's been inconsistent. It starts at the top. It's trickled its way through. Everybody has shown signs of that. And now they got to dig in. And those guys will need to lead the way out of it. And I do see some signs that is starting, believe it or not. And I'm not just looking for optimistic signs, Gino.
No, I get it. Zach Hyman, optimism, realism. He's only been back for 5 games. Still doesn't have a goal, just 2 assists. Recovering from hand surgery is brutal. How far off is Hyman from being his old self? Give me a percentage here, Shogger. What percentage of Zach Hyman are we seeing right now?
I'd say the legs are 110%. He came back in fantastic shape, right? When it's a wrist injury, it's going to take some time for the hands and the shot and all that, but the legs and the lungs, he had ready. He was like he was shot out of a cannon. So he's skating as good as I've seen him skate in his time here in Edmonton. He looks great in terms of his legs. He's getting there. He's throwing body checks. He's being physical. He's showing that work rate that he is so famous for. Keep in mind, they've been using him on a third line. Hasn't necessarily just been sitting in the top six the whole time, right? I think they've used him a little bit on a line with Trent Frederick to try and get Frederick going a little bit. So a bit of a utility use for Hyman as opposed to a top six use the last few games. I think the hands will come. Gino, I think all the things that you appreciate about Hyman's game are there, and it's just going to take some time for the finish. But he's on the right side of it as far as doing things the right way.
Okay, we're done. No, we're not. We're talking goaltending. Stuart Skinner, .885 save percentage, 38th in the league, 12 goals against in his last 3 games. It's not getting any better. Are you still preaching patience, or are you ready to say it's time to get aggressive in the hunt for an upgrade?
His last start was actually pretty good, Gino. Yeah, actually played not bad his last start. No, I think that if there were a trade to be made that were an upgrade on Stuart Skinner, it'd be made already. I mean, I believe that's the simple truth. I don't think Stan Bowman has 2 or 3 deals in his hip pocket and he's like, I just need to figure out Skinner here before I decide if we're willing to pull the trigger on this deal that's going to upgrade our goaltending. I don't think those trades are easy to make. I think he's probably working the phones and probably looking. But here's the thing. People are not going to like this. You're not going to like this. Tough. Stan Bowman is going to take a more patient approach to this. He is. For him to truly evaluate what this team is, they played 16 of their first 24 games on the road. They've had significant injuries throughout their lineup. They had defensemen. Their top 4 defensemen have all taken turns playing the worst hockey of their career at times, sometimes at the same time to start this year. Fans pay lots of money. They can panic if they want. Stan Bowman gets paid lots of money not to panic. And that includes his assessment of the goaltending. Gino, I'm going to hold fast on what I've said all along. I do not believe Stuart Skinner will have the net for Game 1 of the playoffs if he does not demonstrate that there is an uptick in the quality of his play. But I do believe he's got more runway as of right now for Stan Bowman to just make a trade for the sake of a change, right? If there were an upgrade, it would be done, Gino.
All right, Shogger. Shogger says he sees a slight uptick recently. That's the way it turned out the last 2 years. Worked out fine. They made it all the way to the Cup final. We'll see if that uptick turns into a big resurgence of this club this time around, Shogger.